The steady beep of hospital monitors filled the silence as I sat beside my father's bed. 3 weeks since the stroke, and the doctors weren't optimistic. At 58, Dad had seemed invincible, a successful real estate developer who'd built an empire from nothing. Now he lay here, unable to speak, while my stepmother Victoria circled like a vulture. My name is Rebecca Mitchell, and at 29, I was about to lose the only parent I ever truly known. My mother died when I was 2, and for years it had been just Dad and me. Then Victoria came along 5 years ago, younger, beautiful, and according to Dad, a breath of fresh air in our lives. I knew better. Shouldn't you be at work? Victoria's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. She stood in the doorway, perfectly manicured in designer clothes that my father's money had bought. I'm taking some time off, I replied, not looking away from Dad. He needs family here. Family, she scoffed. I'm his wife. I can handle this. Before I could respond, Dad's heart monitors started beeping frantically. Medical staff rushed in, pushing us both aside as they worked to stabilize him. Clear the room, a nurse ordered. In the hallway, Victoria pulled out her phone, speaking in hushed tones. I caught fragments, lawyer, and changes, and today, if possible. My stomach turned. She wasn't even waiting for him to die before making her move. 2 days later, Dad was gone. The funeral was a blur of faces and condolences, but I couldn't take my eyes off Victoria. She played the grieving widow perfectly, dabbing at carefully made-up eyes with a silk handkerchief. But I saw her checking her phone during the eulogy, probably talking to her lawyer again. The reading of the will was scheduled for the following week. I spent those days going through Dad's home office, looking for any clue about his true wishes. He'd always been meticulous with paperwork, keeping everything organized and documented. But something was wrong. Files were missing. Key documents about his business holdings, property deeds, and most importantly, his original will, all gone. Looking for something, Victoria stood in the doorway, a familiar smirk on her face. Just organizing Dad's things, I said, keeping my voice steady. Don't bother, she replied, examining her perfect nails. The lawyer has everything needed for tomorrow, though you might want to prepare yourself for disappointment. The threat in her voice was clear, but she didn't know what I knew. Didn't know that 6 months ago, Dad had pulled me aside after a family dinner, his face serious. Becky, he'd said, using my childhood nickname. I need you to know something. If anything happens to me, don't trust the paperwork. Trust this. He pressed a small key into my hand. Safe deposit box at First National. Everything that matters is there. I kept the key hidden, not understanding its importance until now. The next morning, hours before the will reading, I visited the bank. The safe deposit box contained exactly what I'd hoped. Dad's real will, dated just 2 months ago, along with documentation of all his assets. But there was something else. A USB drive with a sticky note. Watch me first. I plugged it into my laptop and felt my breath catch. It was security camera footage from Dad's home office, showing Victoria late at night, practicing Dad's signature over and over. Another clip showed her removing documents from his files. The timestamp was 3 days after his stroke. Oh, Victoria, I whispered. You should have checked for cameras. Dad had installed them after some papers went missing last year. He never told her about them. At 2 p.m. sharp, I walked into the lawyer's office. Victoria was already there, wearing black like the widow she was pretending to be. Her lawyer, a sharp-faced man named Gregory, sat beside her with a document folder. Let's begin, the family lawyer, Mr. Peterson, said gravely. I have here the most recent version of Harold Mitchell's last will and testament, dated 1 week ago. Victoria's smirk widened as he began to read. According to this will, she got everything. The business, the properties, the accounts. I got nothing. This is clearly my husband's final wish, Victoria said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. He wanted to ensure his wife was taken care of. I stayed silent, waiting. If there are no objections, her lawyer began. Actually, I said, pulling out my laptop, I have something you all need to see. Victoria's face paled as the security footage played on my laptop. Every late-night visit to Dad's office, every practice forgery, every stolen document, all captured in perfect clarity. This is absurd, her lawyer sputtered. This footage could be doctored. It's not. I said calmly, pulling out the documents from the safe deposit box. And this is my father's real will, dated 2 months ago, along with notarized copies of all his business documents. Mr. Peterson examined the papers carefully. These appear to be legitimate. The signatures match our records, and the notary stamps are verified. Victoria stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. "You little bitch," she hissed. "You think you're so clever? Your father wanted me to have everything. I was there for him, not you." "Really?" I pulled up another video file. This one showed Dad in his office 3 months ago, talking directly to the camera. "If you're watching this," his recorded voice filled the room, "then something's happened to me and Victoria's tried exactly what I feared she would. Becky, honey, I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything, but I needed proof. Victoria's been stealing from the company for months, forging my signature, siphoning funds to offshore accounts. I've been gathering evidence, working with forensic accountants. It's all in the USB drive." Victoria lunged for my laptop, but security was already entering the room. I called them before the meeting, knowing exactly how this would play out. "Mrs. Mitchell," a detective said, stepping forward. "We need you to come with us. We have some questions about several fraudulent transactions flagged by the SEC." As they led her away, she turned back to me, her perfectly made-up face contorted with rage. "You'll regret this. I'll destroy everything he built." "No," I said quietly, "you won't." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. The forensic audit Dad had ordered revealed the full scope of Victoria's schemes. She'd stolen over $10 million through fake contracts and forged documents, all while planning her final coup, taking everything once Dad was gone. But Dad had been smarter than she realized. He documented everything, building an airtight case. The real will left the business and most assets to me, with specific provisions for long-term employees and charitable causes Dad had supported. Victoria got nothing. One morning, as I sat in Dad's old office, my office now, Lisa, our longtime secretary, brought in a package. "This was in your father's personal safe," she said softly. "He asked me to give it to you after everything was settled." Inside was a leather journal and a letter. "Dear Becky, if you're reading this, then our plan worked." Yes, our plan. I knew about Victoria's schemes months ago, but I needed to catch her in the act. The stroke wasn't part of the plan. I'm sorry for putting you through that worry, but I knew you were strong enough to handle what needed to be done. I watched you grow into an incredible woman, Becky. Smart, determined, and most importantly, honest. Victoria thought she could outmaneuver us because she believed we were too trusting. She never understood that true strength comes from integrity, not deception. The journal contains everything I learned building this company, not just business strategies, but life lessons. Use it well. Make it better. And remember, I'm so proud of you. Love, Dad. I wiped tears from my eyes as Lisa brought in another visitor, Agent Sarah Morrison from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. "We have something you need to see," she said, opening her laptop. Victoria wasn't working alone. Agent Morrison's revelation hit like a thunderbolt. On her screen was a complex web of financial transactions, all linking back to one name I knew too well, Gregory Walsh, Victoria's lawyer. "He's been orchestrating similar schemes across multiple estates," Morrison explained. "Victoria was just his latest partner." I studied the evidence, dozens of wealthy families targeted, millions stolen through forged documents and fake wills. Gregory had perfected the art of finding vulnerable marks, recent widows, estranged children, families in turmoil. Victoria had been both his protege and accomplice. "We've frozen their accounts," Morrison continued, "but there's still money missing. Around $30 million spread across various offshore holdings." I leaned back in Dad's chair, thinking. "The art collection," I said suddenly. Victoria was obsessed with Dad's art collection. She kept pushing him to have it reappraised last year. Morrison's eyes lit up. "For insurance purposes." "Supposedly." I pulled up the company's records, but look at the appraisal firm, Atlas Fine Arts Consulting. A few keystrokes brought up the company details. Atlas was a shell corporation created 3 years ago. Its owner? A holding company registered to Gregory Walsh. They weren't just stealing money, I realized. They were laundering it through fake art appraisals. The investigation expanded rapidly. The FBI uncovered a network of shell companies, each playing a role in Gregory and Victoria's scheme. They'd been planning this for years, building a facade of legitimacy while systematically looting estates. Victoria, facing multiple federal charges, finally broke. She agreed to testify against Gregory in exchange for a reduced sentence. The day of her plea hearing, I went to see her in custody. She looked different without the designer clothes and perfect makeup, older, smaller. Why? I asked simply. She laughed bitterly. You want to know why? Because men like your father make it so easy. They see a pretty face, a sympathetic smile, and they hand over everything. Gregory taught me that. Dad saw through you, I reminded her. He was smarter than you thought. Yes, she admitted, her facade cracking slightly. He was. And so were you. I underestimated both of you. As I turned to leave, she called after me. The Monet in his study, it's fake. We switched it last year. The real one's in a storage facility in Geneva. Account details are in my phone. Back at the office, I stood looking at the painting. A peaceful garden scene that Dad had loved. Victoria's final attempt at redemption felt hollow. But it helped the FBI recover millions in stolen artwork. Gregory's trial made headlines. Lawyer mastermind behind multi-million-dollar estate fraud ring. He was sentenced to 20 years. Victoria got 8, plus millions in restitution payments. 1 year later, I sat in the same office reviewing quarterly reports. Dad's company had not just survived the scandal, it had thrived. We'd implemented new security measures, helping other families protect themselves from similar schemes. Lisa knocked on my door. Ms. Mitchell, the new estate protection program is ready to launch. I smiled, looking at Dad's journal on my desk. We turned his documentation of Victoria's crimes into a template for identifying fraud, helping other families avoid the same fate. Perfect timing, I said. And Lisa, call me Becky. That evening, I visited Dad's grave, placing fresh flowers beside his headstone. The real Monet, recovered from Geneva, now hung in the company's lobby, a reminder that truth, like art, endures. You were right, Dad, I said softly. True strength does come from integrity. As I walked away, my phone buzzed. Another family reaching out for help protecting their legacy. Dad's lessons lived on, not just in his journal or his company, but in every family we help safeguard from people like Victoria and Gregory. Sometimes the hardest betrayals lead to the most important missions. Mine was ensuring that no other family would have to fight as hard as we did to protect what mattered most.